we'll go ahead and transition into the Q&A portion. So it's been a little bit since we've gotten a chance to just kind of open-ended, but this is an opportunity for those that are new. This is the opportunity to ask your questions. What things have been troubling you, frustrating you, wanting some insight, not only from any and all of the Redmond growth coaches, but also from your co-parts around the whole country. So we'll go ahead and let you start us off here, Mr. Berry. What do you got?
So I actually had a question for Jordan Russ. I was just curious what your guys typically average in revenue a week, like a low and a high number.
Our goal is $10,000 a week per van, and they're 2-man crews. This particular guy was right at 8,000.
That's good. So you run like a lead and a helper, basically. I think 10,000 is about right for two, because like we only run one lead tech, and we're usually around 6,500 to 7,500. So having a helper could probably push them up over that 10,000, I think.
I mean, the part I struggle with is they're going out to a blind call, and if they don't get that job, it might be a half day that I'm basically paying an apprentice to drive around in a van with somebody. So that is the downside to that. But, visions for the future is that guys will be selling jobs, guys will be installing jobs. There'll be a clear dissemination between that. So right now I'm not at that point. So the apprentice is basically tagging along for the estimate process along with the install process.
That's great feedback. I mean, last week was an anomaly, but Dakota did 14,000 last week just because of all the storm work. But that's helpful, because I just want to make sure, like we're on par with what we should be doing, and I think that's good.
Nice. Mr. Ferris, you got your hand up? What question do you have, sir? Oh, we can't hear you. You've unmuted, but audio's not coming through.
Is that any better?
There we
Yes,
go.
we can hear you.
So my question is something I've always struggled with asking for reviews from people is I'm a very perfectionistic person. I tend to have very, very high standards. And when you're doing a remodeling project that lasts, 4 to 14 weeks or something, inevitably there's going to be a couple things that just don't quite land right. And I've always worried that if I go in and ask for reviews on something like that, then that's the only thing people are going to remember, and they're going to review us harshly for that. And so does anyone else deal with that, and how do you get around that?
Great question, Wade.
So,
Jordan.
yeah.
Well, I've dealt with this just recently, so I can tell you, we had a project that went like a couple months, maybe 3 months, and somewhere along the way, the customer actually got really upset and over something that she missed. I know we didn't miss it, but it didn't matter. She was still convinced that we missed it. And so I worked out a deal with her and said, I tell you what, we'll do that if you can get me 3 reviews. And we'll just take care of it. And so she agreed to do that. And there were some other things with the contractor. So our contract was directly with the customer, but there was also a contractor there that was dragging stuff out. And so I think she was just getting frustrated and losing patience all the way around. And in the end, I was like, there's no way she's going to follow through with leaving us a review. But she still ended up doing it and left us that 5-star like we agreed and talked about. So I didn't get the additional 2, but, most people are pretty reasonable and understanding. And we got to remember that not everybody's just like you and me either, and also, I don't know, I think I've heard you guys talk about asking for it early on while things are still, moving, ask for it. If you've already started and things are going well, you can still ask for it. So hope that helps.
So Wade, first of all, great question. Not an easy question to ask, and it's one that a lot of people feel, but they don't ever talk about. So I just want to highlight that. Awesome question. I'm so glad you asked this. Second thing I want to ask you is, have you had the experience that you're kind of afraid of right now, where you ask someone for a review and this happened, or is this just kind of a new thing and a new concern?
Well, I've dealt with a few things where, like, okay, last fall we had a project. It was a basement finish, a pretty decent sized project. I think it ended up being about $130,000. And during that project, life just came at everyone with a vengeance. I got pneumonia twice. My worker got pneumonia. We both got hand, foot, and mouth from kids. The homeowner backed into the worker's car and caused $4,000 worth of damage. Their basement flooded through no fault of ours. Just like an incredible, awful time. And I think the project, my kid fell out of a tree and had a traumatic brain injury and spinal surgery, and just utterly chaos. And we got to the end of it, and he had been very understanding and even complimentary of our work, and said that everything was fantastic. And then at the end, he just seemed very, like, all of a sudden frustrated. And I was very apologetic, and I think I handled it pretty well, but like something like that just really makes me concerned.
So in that situation, did you ask for a review?
I haven't, no.
Okay, so that's kind of the thing I want to highlight here. So it is so normal for us as people to buy into narratives that have no correspondence to reality at all, just because of those types of experiences. You're in a very stressed out state. The world was falling around you. A project, some things went south on it. And you have, like you said, high standards. And you didn't really meet the project expectation that not only the customer had, but what you had for the project, right? So that's highlighted in your head. That's highlighted as like this big thing in your head. But I'm telling you that fear is talking to you louder than it should. And chances are you probably do really good work, and people are really happy with your work. Furthermore, with a remodeling project, you're right. In a remodeling project, a lot of stuff can happen throughout the project, long-term project, a lot of decisions to be made. You're doing surgery on someone's house. The homeowner is uncomfortable because their house is a construction site, so they get stressed and frustrated and all that. A lot can happen. However, I found that it isn't about what happens temporarily throughout the project that's as important as how you finish and how you handle it. And I'm going to guess chances are that you finish really well and that you handle problems really well. So my biggest advice to you is really simply that kind of fear that's talking, that's what I like to call like a perfectionist irrational lie. I don't mean that you're being irrational. I mean that fear should not ever stop you from asking for a review. And I think you should be aware of that and to even play with it a little bit. Ask for a review even when you're uncomfortable. Even when you're not sure what's going to happen, just ask for the review. Because those reviews are going to serve you a lot more for a lot longer than whatever temporary discomfort is going to come from asking. There's a lot of people in this room that can agree to that. Okay. Right. And so I just, it's kind of this like kind of multi-layered coaching moment. I do want to get insight. I saw some other people had their hands raised. I do want to get insight from them. But the first kind of layer here is just to be aware of the narratives that we can buy into. Everyone does it. I do it all the time, right? We can buy into these narratives that just aren't true, right? That stop us from doing the things that we need to do. And the second kind of layer is, although problems happen, a lot of times it's not really the problem that dictates the whole rest of the emotional temperament of the client. It's how you handle the problem. It's how you finish the job. So have confidence in that.
Okay.
Yeah, but would love to hear from others.
Mr. Jeff.
Oh yeah, Mr. Plan Rebuild himself. Jeff Stewart.
Yep.
I always think of NASCAR when I see his name.
Yeah. I wish I were a NASCAR driver.
Hey, not too late, buddy. Don't give up on your dreams.
I just turned 48. I think it's too late.
Especially with that attitude.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
I don't know if my wife.
I'm giving you a hard time.
My wife didn't even let me get a motorcycle.
Oh, geez. Yeah.
Um,
One step at a time.
Yeah. Well, I just wanted to chime in on, we're a home remodeler, general contractor. We do a lot of home additions and some pretty big projects inside people's houses. Robert, you're exactly right. It's incredibly difficult work. You're tearing up someone's house. It becomes such a personal relationship you develop with these people, or at least we do. With all the communication, all being in someone's house. A lot of our projects, people stay in the home throughout. Not always, but a lot of times. So they're seeing the sausage being made every day. So it's incredibly difficult relationships and type of work to do, I feel like. And we've been in the same position where we thought everything was going really well. We do our normal thing. We're communicating. Yes, there's hiccups, of course, always in construction and remodeling, but we just work through everything. We get to the end of a project thinking this has gone. We haven't really heard any complaining or people being upset. And then all of a sudden the wife or the husband or both are just pissed off at us for whatever reason. It took too long, or they don't like something that was done, some of the work or something. And then so it's like shocking. I'm shocked a lot of times. I'm like, where's this coming from? So yeah, it's I take it so personal, and it can be pretty hurtful when somebody's not happy with what, you've been working your tail off for whatever months, 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, and then all of a sudden they're not happy about it. But I agree with the fact that I really try to put a nice bow as we wrap up a project. You're not happy with something, we'll fix it, we'll take care of it as long as it's reasonable. We work diligently through a punch list, and do our best to make sure that the client's happy at the end. That's about all you can do, really, I think. And then it falls. The chips kind of fall where they fall.
Yeah,
that's my.
And I would say
my thoughts.
to affirm what you're saying, Jeff, and kind of tie in a little bit with what Robert was saying as well, is some of those crazy experiences actually are the people that be leaving the best reviews as well. Because it doesn't necessarily matter what happened, especially stuff that's outside of your control, but what you did control, what you did manage, how you made the situation better. That's what's going to show up in the review as well. And it takes them from an unconsidered viewpoint to actually reflect on, well, what did happen in the project? Oh yeah, actually these guys really did well for us, and it could even resolve some of those issues potentially just by asking. I'm not going to say that as like a magic bullet, as if it will resolve the issues of someone being frustrated at the end by asking for a review, but you're doing the best that you can. A lot of those people end up leaving the best reviews. Mr. J. Oh, Jordan,
sorry.
go ahead.
I was just curious, is the emotional side of that keep you from even asking like what might leave them frustrated? Like in that instance, did you ever get to a point where you just asked them, hey, you seemed like maybe there was some frustrations, just want to give you opportunity to get those out and see if we can't make it right? Like have that conversation before you ask the review, for the review, because you never know if you can work through that with them.
So in this case, like they're not social people really at all. Like he primarily just sits in his office all day, doesn't really like to talk to anyone. So like a couple of the things that happened on the project is their chest freezer got unplugged and left unplugged for a couple of days. And he came to me and said, hey, it looks like this happened. And I think we lost about $80 worth of food. And I told him that I'd be happy to cover like $200 so that, it handles a little bit of their frustration and everything. And I put a huge sign on the cord, tried to be funny about it, and said, "Don't even think about unplugging this ever again," something like that. And he said he was really happy with how we handled stuff like that. And then I think at the end of the project, when I sent him an invoice, there was an item on the invoice that he said he wasn't expecting, and he was really frustrated because the project had gone longer, and now he's getting hit with, it was like a $200 charge, something pretty minor in the grand scheme of things. And I apologized for the misunderstanding and explained where that charge came from and told him I'd be happy to drop it off, and that's what I did. And so I guess I just got a lot of mixed communication from him. And I guess also a couple of years ago, I had a really, really terrible experience. We were doing a whole house remodel, like completely redid the structure of the entire main level. Turned out really, really great. But the last week of the project, we had delayed window installation because we're in Minnesota and we didn't want to do it in January. And so we delayed it until April. And the last week of the project, they just decided they didn't want us back to the house anymore. And it went to lawyers and all that stuff. We ended up taking a $30,000 bath on it. And personally, I kind of think it's because they didn't want to pay the last invoice. But that just really, that stressed me out on stuff like that. It came out of nowhere for me. And I don't want to, I guess, experience something like that again. So that's maybe why I'm having trouble with it.
So you made me think of something when you were talking, because I find like almost every guy does this when I train them in sales. At some point, they will like get stuck on the number with the customer, and then they just stay on the number. And so now what I tell them is like, look, just visit the number once. Don't get stuck on the number with the customer. Make the focus the work and the things that you have to do. So because what they're looking for is to understand what it is you have to do. And so when you said that like towards the end there was some stuff, I just kind of wonder if maybe you're just getting stuck in the emotional side of that moment with the customer, but it doesn't reflect the overall part of the job. And maybe what you need to do is, instead of getting stuck there with him on that, start asking questions about, well, hey, what about the rest of the job, the work that we performed? How do you like how it turned out? Start focusing on the other things. Like, go ahead and visit that with him for the moment and work through that, but then move on from that and don't get stuck there. So hopefully it can produce a little bit better conversation with them in the end.
That's a good idea.
Very good. Mr. Gravatt, you got your hand up. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, this kind of expounds on something Robert said and Jeff. Whenever I sign a deal with a customer, there's a couple things that I always mention as I go through it. One is almost exactly what Robert says. I tell them, I say, hey, look, this is construction and things are going to happen that we can't control. And we like to think that what happens during the job doesn't make a company good or bad. It's how they react to what happens that makes them good or bad. So if you'll just keep that in mind as we get your project going. One of the other things that I say is, this is going to take, 6 or 8 weeks, so we're going to be in your house. We're going to get to be friends. We're going to be mad at each other. But the one thing that I need you to do is you're going to wake up one day during this process and you're going to be tired of us being here. And believe me, we want to get out of here. We want to get your job done and make you happy. But whenever that day comes, if something, no matter how small it is, bothers you or you're getting upset about things, just pull me aside or give, and we can talk about it and that sort of stuff. And that just kind of, because then when those things do happen, whenever we are asking for the review, it's always like, hey, like I said, we did, I know this and this and this happened, but how's the total outcome of the project? Are you happy with the outcome? Does it look good? Is this what you wanted? And then you kind of just gloss over all the stuff that happened during the job.
That's
Good.
great feedback. I think setting those expectations and having those conversations ahead of time a lot of times makes it a lot softer. Philip,
Well,
I see your hand up.
Yeah, it will prevent a lot of problems from even coming up. Like it won't only, Nicole's right, it won't only make it softer. And a lot of times it will come up still, but you can refer back to the expectations. That's what Nicole means, right? It makes it softer, much easier to handle. But a lot of times, that's why we're so big on that onboarding meeting. How many of you guys do that onboarding meeting before you start a project? Yeah, Jeff, I really, Wade, if you're not doing that, I think that's like the biggest takeaway from this. Is to do an onboarding meeting where you're going over all your billing, how it works, the schedule, and you're setting expectations, just general expectations of what it's like to do a construction project in your home. Do not assume that the customer even is thinking, oh yeah, if I'm doing a kitchen remodel, I won't have a kitchen for 3 months or however long, right? I need to figure out how I'm going to do my dinner, my meals, right? Maybe it's a good time to take that vacation. Do that on board. Do we have it, Bryce? Can we put a link to that onboarding meeting template? So I want to continue, but real quick to add context. The onboarding meeting is the meeting you do before you start a project after someone's already signed the contract. So this is a customer, right? And you're going to do a construction project, and you have a meeting, maybe 2 weeks before the project starting, a week before the project starting, where you're setting up. It's like a project kickoff call. You're setting expectations about what to expect with this project. And again, you think customers or homeowners might know or expect what is obvious to you. Do not make that assumption. Right? So we've got a link in there. Check that out, Wade. Check that out. Anyone else that wants to see what I'm talking about. This is the onboarding project kickoff meeting. Every single construction company that is working with residential customers needs to do this meeting. Okay. Philip.
Yeah, we do the pre-con or the project kickoff, but also at the end of the project we do a project closeout. And
that's great.
A big thing that helps us, just kind of, especially when every project there's one or two things that go wrong, and I'm very perfectionist minded as well, and I always kind of lean on the things that happen that aren't great and focus on those. So one thing that's helped me is at the end of the closeout document, I'll have a question of, hey, where do we have room for improvement, and client feedback of like, what can we do better for our future clients? And that kind of like opens up that conversation. You can talk through it, and then following that, we do what did we do really well? What were our successes, so that we can end on a high note? And then after that, we ask for the review.
Nice. That's a good process, Philip. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah. I mean, I love that even more, because how many of you have, finished a project and gotten that call, a week or two later, hey, when is this going to come in? Or I need you guys to do this, or can you come back? By having a meeting like that, like Philip does, you at least create a plan to handle all of that, like whatever you want to call it, blue tape stuff, project punch list stuff. And that's a great time to ask for a review as well. It's also a great time to ensure that your final payment's not delayed if you're still waiting on payment. Johnny, you've had your hand raised for a minute, brother. What's going on?
Yeah, I was just going to speak to what Wade was talking about, taking a bath for $30,000. And, there's definitely been years in the past where we've had the same thing happen to us. And, one thing that definitely helped us over time was figuring out how to build with our clients' money instead of building with our money. And that has been a big help for our businesses over the last years, is, making sure we're getting deposits and we're getting funding from the client to build the project instead of the other way around. And again, Wade, I don't know how you do business, but definitely has helped us avoid some of those problems. Not to say you're not going to have conversations or negotiations about this or that, but at least we're getting the money up front before we're ordering window packages or whatever it might be. And you know, we're funding those projects with their money and not ours.
Yeah, just we do progressive billing so that we're basically funding the project before we're building it. So our progress payments fund the work that comes after it. That ended up being the final payment on that project. Normally I try to keep those much smaller, but we hadn't quite gotten to the point where we could say we were at punch list. So there was still, you know, a somewhat decent amount of work to do. So we weren't quite ready for the final payment.
Wade, correct me if I'm wrong. Are you saying that for most of your jobs or all of your jobs, the you bill for work already performed, and so the money comes after the work and labor? Are you saying, hey, I make sure that I get paid before the work and labor is performed?
So we typically break things up by payment. So like we usually have, if we're scheduling it way out, then we'll have a smaller down payment. But if it's going to be within like 2 months, it's usually a 10% down payment. Unless it's a kitchen, then it's going to be 20 to 30% for cabinets and so forth. And then each payment that we get, that then pays for the work that we then do up until the next payment.
Okay,
We
so
don't
money's
do like
money's
cost-
staying ahead of the work.
Correct. Yep.
Good. That's why I wanted to confirm.
Yeah, the only point at which it's not really like that is that final payment. But that, if there's only minor punch list stuff, then we typically go ahead and ask for our final payment minus any retainer for the punch list stuff. That's pretty rare that we have to do that because punch list only usually takes a couple days.
Yeah, no, that's good.
Which it's a change that we made is we defined when final payment is due in our billing agreement to be at that point where like we would end the project with like a punch list review meeting, right? And that's when the final payment was due. And we put that in our billing agreement and we set those expectations on the onboarding call, right? Because a lot of times the word finished can like vary between the contractor and customer, right? Like there were projects where we were waiting for like one fixture that was on like back order. That was going to take weeks to come in, right? But we didn't define that when the project was finished. So the customer just thought, oh, project is done. I don't owe you guys anything until literally every single little thing is done on this project. And we unnecessarily delayed, you know, a payment of tens of thousands of dollars because of like a fixture. So just you have the freedom to do actually specifically define that in your billing agreement in case you haven't, right? And Wade, you may already do that, but in case anyone else doesn't, don't assume, again, that's kind of a theme of work. Don't assume that, you know, the customer will be on the same page as you are about when that final payment is due. And a lot of times that's the one that extends the furthest. And it's the most important to collect often. It's the most important to collect often.
Nice. Great question, Wade. It prompted a lot of good conversation as well. Went into a lot of different places. But really appreciate all the feedback and participation there too. What other questions do we have out there this morning? Any other thoughts? Yes, sir, Mr. Bayless.
So I don't know how it works around the red tape like here in wonderful California, but
oh God,
you're not allowed to collect a down payment more than $1,000.
Oh, we know about this law. We know about this law.
Yeah.
And-
Before I asked I got almost asked Wade before I asked him if the money was staying had the work, if he was in California, because I know that that's one of the states that it's really hard.
I mean, we still do it in a way, but I mean, most of our customers are, you know, especially if it's like a big ticket item, like I try not to float that or front it, you know. And there's different verbiage we do, is like mobilization fee or, you know, this or that, you know, try to slough it up. But my question though is like on a bigger, I mean, I say not belittling a residential project at all, but let's just say we're doing a commercial TI job, like, and you're working for a general contractor, like how do you essentially, instead of floating 30 days worth of work or however long that project's going to last, like I'm assuming their mindset is you get paid when you're done. Like, is that generally through the thing, or like you don't get no deposit, no nothing up front, you just do the work and you get paid at the end? It's kind of my question, more on commercial side.
Any client feedback on what they've experienced?
Richard, can you frame the question one more time, just so that everyone?
Yeah. So
really
I'm looking to start bidding on these like small commercial TIs in my area, you know, that I get through Building Connect or whatever to bid, you know, on jobs and stuff. And you know, some jobs might be, you know, a $60,000 or $70,000 job, and I'm working with somebody, one I don't know, never done work with as a general contractor. And like, how do you set up your payment schedule, especially like here in California? Obviously they have that stipulation, but like I know there's loopholes. Do people normally ask for, hey, due upon signing, or they just do the work and get paid, you know, at the end? Because when you're fronting a lot of money for, you know, HVAC equipment, that's a pretty, you know, hefty bill floating out there, especially nowadays. Nothing's cheap no more.
I see, Mr. Jesse, you're itching
So
down there.
we do some commercial work, and I'm in California too. And when these guys were talking about getting money ahead of time, I'm like, holy crap! I wish I wasn't financing every job. But yeah. So how I work it is I'll put it in the contract that a certain amount is due once material hits the job site for commercial jobs, and that usually is like way more than what my material cost is. So I just word it to where I'm not financing it, and then like you can usually pull like 50% draws on commercial projects once they get to a certain point. It's usually kind of like left up to the superintendent on the job. And I mean, everything's always different, but that's kind of how I work it. Like once material hits the job site, this is the bill, and we don't do much until that gets paid.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's kind of what I've been told from, you know, other mentors of mine. They call it as a mobilization fee. Like, hey, once it, you know, unit transports and hits the job site, and then yeah, we collect payment on that portion. So, cool.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Are the laws in California the same for commercial opportunities as they are for residential about collecting money up front?
That's a good question. I'm pretty sure it is. You know,
they are.
I'm pretty sure it is.
They are.
Yeah, when you take the exam, or even when they coach you, you know, pre-exam, that's what they, you know, tell you is, you know, that verbiage right there. They don't specify whether it's residential or commercial. Usually everything's like across the board for everything.
Usually general contractors though are aware that they want their subs to show up, and because they need to get jobs done. So they're usually, you know, gonna pay you when you need it, because they need you guys to show up, so that because they got to meet their timelines.
Right. Yeah, I would imagine that the skill of or creating systems where the customer really feels that if a payment isn't made on time, that the project will be delayed. is so much more important in California. And that would be the thing that I would focus on in this.
We've
is
actually
the
packed
tally-
up job sites. If I didn't get paid,
Right.
we pack
Yeah.
up and we've left for like a week or 2 weeks. Like all the equipment's gone so that they don't see us there. And then
Right.
and then all of a sudden that check shows up.
Yeah, I would that would be my suggestion is I would not hesitate, right? If you're spending your own business's resources and capital and profits to, pay for someone else's, improvements on their property, that'd be my biggest thing. It's just, if that bill isn't paid according to the terms of your agreement, then I would leave. Or create penalties that you actually enforce, Really good feedback, guys. Anything else for today? Probably got time for maybe one more question, comment, concern.
I have a comment
Or
about
just-
getting Google quotes if we're back to that, but it's a minor
Yeah.
thing. But we're new to this, to asking for reviews. We've done business for so long and haven't asked for reviews. And so we're still working on, how to ask for it and what's most effective. And I mean, I'm not talking about larger jobs like 6-month remodel jobs, but on most jobs when I'm presenting it to them, I try to hit some high points of what did go right on the job and reminding customers of what was good. A lot of times, oh, we came in and got this and okay, it's done, the job's done. But no, as a company, you called last week, we were able to get to you, in a timely manner. We got the job done in an appropriate time. Everything was done, as we asked or as was expected, and you're happy with the job we did. So like reminding them of reasons right then quickly of why things went well. And, we did what we were supposed to do as a company. And then just, saying that, they're very important to our company. And if you're willing to leave a good review, just asking for the word good, we're new to this. We're always scared of having a bad review, someone leaving a bad review for us, which we do good work, but, there's some crazy people out there. But just, ending that on, if you're willing to leave us a good review, here's the link to do it. And kind of had great success with getting reviews from people for that. Quickly reminding them of all the good things. Oh, there was a holdup here, but we responded, well, and, got it back on track or something. Reminding them of the high points and then asking them for a good review, not just a review and leaving it up there too. Maybe it's a 3-star or 4-star, but if you're not going to leave us a good review, then don't do it. But saying that word, I don't know, people have been responsive to it. We're still working through the script, but those are things that maybe they'll help, somebody else as they're working through it. So.
Really good feedback, Leslie. Jordan, you got something on that?
I don't. I have a separate question.
Yeah, Leslie, one quick tip before we move on to Jordan's separate question. Best time to ask for a review, this applies to everyone, is when a customer is already singing your praises.
Yes, that is true. Yes.
Best time to ask for one is when, oh my gosh, I love it. It looks great. Thank you so much. Hey, no problem. We've got a lot of other people out there that are looking for a good contractor. They don't know who to trust. Could you say what you just said in a Google review form real quick for me?
That's good.
And I'll be more than happy to do it.
And text them the link. Text them the link right then and there and ask them to click on it to make sure that it works.
Yeah.
So that you've already done everything other than leave the review. It's right there. The next time they open up their phone, it's open. It's there. If you are not texting them the link, if you are not asking them to click on it, I promise you there's a very slim chance that review is going to come through.
And then take their hand, okay, and point their finger on their phone and start typing the review. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, too, just
Okay.
saying it'll take 30, it takes you right there. It'll take you, just a quick minute to leave it.
Yep.
It's not complicated.
Huge
so.
help for us. It'll just take you a quick minute. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Jordan, what's going on?
What do you guys have as a procedure for call outs and stuff like that? So one thing that as we're growing, a lot of times people will just shoot me a text or see me in the shop and be like, hey, I need Friday off for a funeral, or I've got X, Y, and Z that I need off. And it's just like what we have right now is not really a system in place for call outs. And so do you guys do like paper records of that, or do you do, they have to contact a certain person? Like we've been thinking of putting like a wall mounted folder that has the forms and you fill them out and put them in. I don't know if anybody has a policy that they'd like to share with me that we might be able to implement.
It's a great question. Any client feedback of what they're doing that they've seen work? Richard, do you have feedback on this?
Obviously, I'm a one-man show, but my prior employment, I overseen 15 and 16 guys. I was supervisor, and our rule was, minimum 2 weeks notice. And then there was a calendar in the service manager's office or whoever overseed the scheduling. And I mean, we couldn't have no more than 1 or 2 techs out at the same time. So you kind of just have to implement, hey, it's minimum two weeks or whatever. I mean, obviously the longer the better, and then emergencies happen, but at least got to have some kind of calendar. And then either they pass the request on to their foreman or supervisor, and then it goes to the next person. And that seemed to always usually work that way, and just always making sure you don't have 3 guys out on the same day, but.
Yeah, which also leads to the importance of making sure that it is one person that they're reporting that to. Like it can't be, oh, I saw Jordan in the shop, so I asked Jordan, and then the next time I need time off, I text Stacy. No, like we need to have a set process of who are we asking, who are we communicating to. And I totally agree with 2 weeks notice. Obviously emergencies happen and we can make exceptions case by case there, but 2 weeks, and it's not a guarantee. When you ask me for time off, it's not a guarantee you're going to get it. We want to set that expectation as well. Any other client feedback on this? And Jordan, we can outline that more too during our call. Johnny, I see your hand up.
Yeah, just a quick question about the Google reviews. And this is probably something we've talked about before, but I don't remember. Is there any way to get around somebody not having a Gmail account to leave a Google review? No.
Get them to leave you a Facebook review.
Yeah.
They probably have a Facebook, but no, you gotta have it. You gotta have a Google account.
Right,
I mean, you could say, hey, do you have a YouTube account? Like, even if they're like, well, I don't use Gmail, they probably do have a Google account most of the time. They just may not be thinking of it, right?
Yeah.
So YouTube TV, all those are Google accounts.
Awesome. Great questions. Great feedback this week, guys. Robert, you want to close us down?
Yeah.
You've led more
if you're
football
new
huddles
here,
than
if you're
I have.
new here, we like to end our calls like an Oklahoma Sooners football huddle. What that means is I count down 3, 2, 1, and we all say the word growth on 3, like we're a team. All right. So I'm going to count down, and we're all going to say growth. Unmute your mics. Everyone unmute your mics. Richard, yep. Johnny, I see your mic muted. All right, 3, 2, 1. Growth.
Bye, guys.
Let's go
Have a good
win the
week.
game and get a touchdown. All right, guys. We'll see you.